Our Yizkor service begins with the words, Eli, Eli. Please join with us. The words can be found in your handout. Lord, I yearn only to be near you, though at times I seem remote. Page 477. Lord, I cannot find the way unaided. Teach me the faithful service you would have me do. Show me your ways. Guide me, lead me, release me from the prison of unknowing while I still can make amends. Do not despise my lowly state. Before I grow so weak, so heavy with mortality that I bend and fall, and my bones brittle with age become food for moth and worm, be my help, oh, be my help. Where my forebears went, there I go. Yes, I know it. Their resting place is mine. I know it. Like them, I am a stranger passing through this life. Since the womb of earth is my allotted portion, and since I've chased the wind from the beginning of my days, when will I come to set my house in order? The passions you yourself have made a part of me have kept me ramped with the passing scene, and how enslaved to passion as I've been, a prey to fierce and fiery hungers, how, I ask, could I have served you as I needed to, together? But now the time has come to ask, why all this ambition? Why the quest for high estate, when tomorrow I must die? Why this expensive spirit, when tomorrow I mourn the passing time? These days and nights combine to bring me to the end. They scatter my thought to the winds. They return my frame to the dust. What now can I say in my defense? What brave words remain to shield me from my truth? My nature has pursued me, possessed me, driven and flayed me, a doubtful friend from childhood on. What then do I really have besides your presence? Stripped of my pretensions, naked at the last, here I stand, and only your goodness can clothe and shelter me. For nothing now remains but this. Lord, I yearn only to be near you. O God, you are my God. At first light I seek you. So do I look for you in the sanctuary to behold your power and your glory. Your love is better than life. My lips will extol you. Lord of all worlds, how insignificant we are in your sight and how minute in your presence. You are creator of a universe so vast that the effort to conceive it overwhelms the mind. The keenest eye scans but a corner of it. The rays of light we see today began their journey long before we came to be. Counted from first creation, the earth we live on was born but yesterday, and we made our appearance on it only a moment ago. We are feeble. We live always on the brink of death. Scarcely ushered into life, we begin our journey to the grave. Our best laid plans are ever at risk. Our fondest hopes are buried with us. Ambition drives us on to high exertion. Indulgence makes us waste the powers we have, and evil seduces us to heap misery upon others. Success and failure, love and hatred, pleasure and pain mark our days from birth to death. We prevail only to succumb. We fail only to renew the struggle. The eye is never satisfied with seeing. Endless are the desires of the heart. We devise new schemes on the graves of 1,000 disappointed hopes. Like Moses on Mount Nebo, we behold the promised land from afar, but may not enter it. Our life, at its best, is an endless effort for a goal we never attain. Death finally terminates the struggle, and joy and grief, success and failure, all are ended. Like children falling asleep over their toys, we relinquish our grasp on earthly possessions only when death overtakes us. Master and servant, rich and poor, strong and feeble, wise and simple, all are equal in death. The grave levels all distinctions and makes the whole world kin. We are strangers in your sight, O God, like all who came before us. Our days on earth vanish like shadows. But the speedy flight of life and the grave that looms on the horizon should not dismay us. Rather, let them teach us wisdom and prompt us to put our trust in you. For only the dust returns to the dust. The spirit which you have breathed into us returns to you, its everlasting source. Into us you have placed a portion of your divinity. Your mighty strength is our firm support. When we become servants of your Lord, witnesses to your truth, champions of your kingdom, then indeed do we endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. Lord, you have been our refuge in all generations. For 1,000 years in your sight are but as yesterday when it is past, or as a watch in the night. The number of our years may be many or few, yet vain toil fills their span. For it is soon ended and we fly away. So teach us to number our days that we may grow wise in heart. Let the beauty of our eternal God be with us, and may our work have lasting value. O God, author of life and death, our wisdom is small, our vision short. One by one, our companions passing along the road of life disappear from our view. We know that each must walk the same path, the doorway of the grave. We strain to see what lies beyond the gate, but all is darkness from our mortal sight.
Yet even the darkness is not too dark for you, O God, but the night shines as the day.
You have created us in your image and made us share in your enduring righteousness. You have put eternity into our hearts, have implanted within us a vision of life everlasting. This hope we cherish in humility and faith, trusting in your endless goodness and your wondrous love.
Into your hands we commit the spirits of our dear ones, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life.
Sustain us, O God, that we may meet with calm serenity the dark mysteries that lie ahead, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with us, a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our life, our hope in eternity. If some messenger were to come to us with the offer that death should be overthrown, but with the one inseparable condition that birth should also cease, if the existing generation were given the chance to live forever, but on the clear understanding that never again would there be a child or a youth or first love, never again new persons with new hopes, new ideas, new achievements, ourselves for always and never any others, could the answer be in doubt?
We shall not fear the summons of death. We shall remember those who have gone before us and those who will come after us.
Alas, for those who cannot sing, but die with all their music in them, let us treasure the time we have and resolve to use it well, counting each moment precious, a chance to apprehend some truth, to experience some beauty, to conquer some evil, to relieve some suffering, to love and be loved, to achieve something of lasting worth.
Help us, Lord, to fulfill the promise that is in each of us, and so to conduct ourselves that generations hence it will be true to say of us, the world is better because, for a brief space, they lived in it.
All things pass away, but you are eternal. Teach us, O God, to see that when we link ourselves to you and strive to do your will, our lives acquire eternal meaning and value. And sustain in us the hope, for we do not dare ask for more, that the human spirit, created in your image, is like you, eternal.
The dust returns to the earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God.
In you, Lord, do I seek refuge. Let me never be put to shame.
Ponder the end, the measure of my days. Help me to realize how fleeting is my life.
You have made my days a mere span. My life's duration is nothing before you. Those who stand firm are but a breath of wind.
They move about like shadows. They stir the air like a passing breeze. They heap up riches, not knowing who will inherit them.
What hope have I then, Lord? My trust is in you.
But God is forever the strength of my heart and my life's destination.
I dwell in the shelter of the Most High. I abide in the shadow of the Almighty.
And I say to the Lord, you are my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust.
Let us call to mind the great and good, through whom the Lord has done wonders. Wise and eloquent in their teachings, they were just and loving in their deeds. There are some who have left a name behind them, whose remembrance is as honey in the mouth. And there are some who have left no memorial, whose names have vanished as though they had never been. We continue silently with the meditation that follows.
In the middle of page 488. Author of life, bless the memories we cherish on this day that more than any other affords us glimpses of eternity. May the sorrows we have known be softened by our sense of your infinite wisdom, your unending love, your eternal presence. May the pains of past bereavements grow more gentle. Indeed, let them be transformed into gratitude to our dear ones who have died and tenderness to those who are still with us.
Adonai, lo exar, minut desce arbit Magle Tzedek Leman Shemo. Gam Kirech Begetz al Mavet Lo Irara Ki Ata Imani Shivtecha U'mishantecha Hema Yenachamuni Ta'aruch lefanai Shulchan neged sorai Dishanta Vashem roshi Kosi revaya Akava chesed yirdefuni Kol yemei chayai Kol yemei chayai Veshavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. Adonai roi lo echsar Adonai roi lo echsar.
At the top of page 489, we read the 23rd Psalm together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for the sake of his name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff you comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Turning now to the Book of Memory, on page 16, we find the words of the Elegy for the 6 Million, the way in which we memorialize the vanished martyrs of our people in song.
Oh
Back in our prayer books now, page 489. O giver of life, our times are in your hand. One generation comes into the world to be blessed with days of peace and safety. Another goes through the valley of the shadow, enduring the cruelties of persecution and war. Heartbreaking have been the times that have fallen to our lot, O God. We have lived through years of tyranny and destruction. We are schooled in sorrow and acquainted with grief. We have seen the just defeated, the innocent driven from their homes, and the righteous suffer a martyrdom as merciless as any ages have witnessed. At this hour of memorial, we recall with grief all your children who have perished through the cruelty of the oppressor, victims of demonic hate, the aged and young, the learned and unlettered, all driven in multitudes along the road of pain and pitiless death. Their very presence on earth was begrudged them, for they brought your covenant of mercy and justice to the recollection of your enemies. They perished because they were a symbol of your eternal law. Their death has brought darkness to the human soul. They lie in nameless graves, in far-off forests and lonely fields, and the substance of many was scattered by the winds to the earth's four corners. Yet they shall not be forgotten. We take them into our hearts and give them a place beside the cherished memories of our own loved ones. They now are ours. Together, we pray to you, O source of mercy. May come to glow with a renewed light in the human soul, that remembering them we may sanctify your name in all the world. Thus will their memory become an enduring blessing to all your children. Friends, this evening, all of us in here together, all of us mourners, all of us touched by the chill of the grave, we are all bound by the prayers of memory into an unenviable fellowship. Yizkor draws all of us, those newly bereaved and those who have grieved for years, together by the task of mourning. All of us members of a club no one wants to join. All of us are here in this room together because we have loved and we have lost. And so there are things that we share, you and I. We share the memory of what it's like for tears to find us at inconvenient times. We know how memory can knock the wind out of you. We know the peculiar feeling of emptiness that remains, like the gap left by a pulled tooth, whose pain and tenderness still catch us off guard, even after the healing that comes from time. Another thing that we share is the experience of having been comforted by others. All of us who have survived loss have stories that we can share about times, perhaps when our grief was freshest, when we received loving care from those who love us. We remember times when kindness was so overpowering we could scarcely believe it. But we also remember times when well-meaning overtures went wrong. Almost all of us, I would bet, have acquaintances or relatives who thought they were being helpful while we mourned. At the Shiva house or at birthdays, at anniversaries or holidays that were difficult for us. They said things that they believed would comfort us, but which wounded us instead. You must be glad she's not suffering anymore. It was just his time to go. Everything happens for a reason. He's in a better place now. I guess God needed her more than we did. They're words that assuredly are more comforting to the person saying them to the one receiving them. We shake our heads and wonder why someone would say these things, or at least I did when I was the mourner that people said them to. And then I was so sad and angry when I encountered a story from our own Jewish tradition offering the same dish of cold comfort to a mourner. The Midrash relates a story about a tragic event in the life of the great 2nd century sage Rabbi Meir. According to the story, 2 of Rabbi Meir's children died in a single day. And so his wife tried to comfort him by telling him a story. She offered the allegory of a precious object that had been loaned out to a trustworthy borrower, but was finally being returned to the keeping of its rightful owner. Imagine if a king had lent the crown jewels to an ordinary subject of the kingdom, she suggested. Certainly it wouldn't be sad or surprising when the king called for the return of the jewels and collected them back to the castle. And so, she concluded, we should be reassured by knowing that just in the same way, God has called for the return of those 2 valuable souls he lent to us. It seems an unusually cruel thing for her to have said to him. To me, it is nearly unthinkable that the rabbi might have been comforted by it, or that any of us, the widowed and the orphaned, those left bereft by the loss of friends, siblings, children, could be relieved by the suggestion that God needed them more than we did. So we have to ask, we Jews who are heirs of the most insightful religious tradition in the world when it comes to working our way through death, Jewish mourning rituals and customs and the expectations it sets out for those left bereaved by death, they are genius. And so for me, there must be a way to make sense of this story. I have to find a way of understanding it, despite its emotional tone deafness, and despite the troubling implications it makes about God's nature and the mechanics of life and death. I have to, because I believe deeply in Judaism's insight and sensitivity in matters of grief and loss. And so here is one possibility. We all know that there are many names in Judaism for God. On the high holy days, of course, God is our Father, our King, who edits the book of life while perched on a heavenly throne. But another dimension of God's identity is that God is the one who remembers. That's how the Bible identifies God when women like Sarah and Hannah, previously unable to conceive, suddenly find themselves pregnant. It's the aspect of God that is awakened when the cries of the Israelites in Egyptian slavery reach God's ears. It's how the Torah reassures us every time the divine presence intervenes in history to set things right in a broken world. God remembered the covenant. And in our Machzor, the liturgy of these high holy days calls God by a special name we don't use any other time during the year. The liturgy calls God Zocher Kol HaNishkachot, the one who remembers all that has been forgotten. By this, it generally means to emphasize that God remembers the things that we've done, our sins and our kindnesses over the past year, that God tallies and assesses them before determining the course of the year ahead. God remembers us. But, more importantly, during this Yizkor service, we should note that God remembers the ones we have lost as well. And this is what helps me make sense of that story told by Rabbi Meir's wife 20 centuries ago. Because if God is the one who remembers what might otherwise be forgotten, I can take small comfort in knowing that those taken from us, those borrowed jewels that must be returned to their owner, will be collected by God as adornments for a crown of memory. Let me be clear, I do not believe that God collects souls for some higher purpose that is concealed from us or for God's own selfish pleasure. For many of us, the jewels in God's crown, beautiful though they may be, are the jewels of plunder, gems that should never have been taken, that still belong here with us. But since they are gone, even if we cannot understand why, we may yet find solace in knowing that our dear ones, our most precious gems, have become jewels in the crown of memory, resting at last in the most rarefied royal chamber of God's presence. God remembers things long forgotten, and at this time of year we act in imitation of God. We too collect memories, draw them near to us, try to gain warmth from them like coals that still glow after bright flames have gone out. We draw our memories out of the darkness, one by one, our most precious recollections of those now vanished from us, the way they smelled, the way they held us, their favorite things to wear, the way they looked, so that only we could tell that they were feeling tired or mischievous or affectionate. The same old jokes they would tell every time, and the way they would laugh to be generous when we told ours. From the deep wells of memory surface shining fragments of the precious time we spent with them. A song, a pair of shoes, a meal. We cup these things lovingly in our hands and we think, oh, they would have loved this. This is why memory is valuable, and this is why it is holy. Because like God, memory can give life to the dead. Through our memory of those for whom we say Yizkor prayers today, they remain with us. They accompany us in our work or in the good deeds we do that give our life its meaning. They're with us in the things we value or the things we dread. They're with us in our love. And they will stay with us forever because we, too, are Zochrei HaNishkachot, the ones who remember what would otherwise be lost. Our devotion to the work of memory burns hot and bright because it is our last and most enduring kindness to them. It is, in the end, the one thing that is left for us to do for those we loved, those we lost, those we remember. And so, wounded but still standing, still moving forward, still remembering, we partners in the dark fellowship of grief, we hold on to our recollections of the ones we have lost. We bind them into tight, precious bundles. Our memories remain even after we have surrendered those we have lost, returned those shining, precious jewels to be placed in the crown of the one who remembers. And so this Yizkor can offer us a small measure of comfort, can allow the tightness of loss to gently loosen one more notch as our prayers rise to the widest spaces of the universe, upward and outward, coming to rest at last in peace in the vault of eternal memory. We take a moment now for silent reflection. And now we remember with sorrow those whom death has taken from our midst during the past year. We remember these members of this holy congregation laid to rest since last we gathered to say the Yizkor prayers. We remember Marvin Bertman, Alan Brooks, Judith Bronstein, Ira Brown, Lorraine Cohen, Shirley Cohen, Jessica Danziger, Barbara Dokel, Sam Felt, Evelyn Finkelstein, Nathan Finkelstein, Dan Gerson, Rose Griswold, Isaac Heimbinder, Barry Hertz, Sam Joachim, Marjorie Kamen, Irving Klein, Myrtle Kushel, Bernard Krakauer, Doris Krakauer, Melvin Lewis, Alton Lipkin, Vlad Listengarten, David Latowski, Sandra Littell, Florence Loeb, Ernie Meyerson, Ann Oppman, Irving Oppman, Benjamin Ostrovsky, Minna Pashkoff, Muriel Phillips, Alan Pogash, Doris Prizant, Ann Wynne Rice, Jacob Remmels, Paul Rosenthal, Marvin Ross, Leah Schiff, Joseph Siegel, Helen Shackett, Dorothy Shapiro, Esther Shelby, Ira Shepard, Barbara Sklar, Gerard Stafford, Marty Steiner, Gary Lee Sykes, Gertrude Teeter, Faye Tucker, Bernice Wagman, Naomi Warren, Fannie Wheel, and W. Ward White. To their names, we add these names, the names of those lost by members of our congregation in the past year. We recall with sadness and sympathy the names of Morris Atlas, Cynthia Aycock, Sue Baird, Joanne Blumenthal, Richard Bronstein, Ruth Bruckner, Carol Connolly Camberg, Matt V. Churches, Louis Stephen Colby, Alan Curl, Bradley Cypress, Jules Dante, Priscilla Penny Diamond, Ellie Joshua Eichhorn, Grace Ernstine, William Feldman, Barbara Fink, Philip H. Flowers, Sidney Frank, Robert Gold, Ray Bell Khan Goldgar, Morton Gordon, Perry Edward Gross, Harry Halpin, Hertz Hank Henkoff, Beverly Jacobs, Susan Ross Brown Johansson, Estelle Cass, Norman Keene, Shirley Ruth Klar, Cami Noller, Rhoda Fenberg Kraus, Cy Kortler, Herb Lesser, John Levy, James Litwitz, Samuel Looks, Richard Marks, Edwin L. Martin, Ryan Mendeloff, Frank Milliken, Abraham Moskowitz, Maureen Muntz, John Nimitz, Sylvia Oberstein, Giovanna Pericone, Dot Perot, Bobby Carl Plumley, Travis Plumley, Annabelle McCaslin Rhodes, Helen Topek Rosen, Lois Rodersman, Irene Salzberg, Rabbi Robert Samuels, Shirley Clopton Schluter, Susan Schultz, Amy Schwartz, Paul Siegel, Bobby Shelley, Gerald Silber, Gloria Silber, Natalie Fish Singer, Albert Harold Solomon, Betty Mae Cohen Stecken, Rhoda Toback, Robert Weinberger, Edith Westerman, Jody Wolf, Gloria Wolfson, and Ernest M. Wright, Jr. Taking these dear ones into our hearts with all our beloved, we recall them now with reverence. And we continue responsively on the bottom half of page 490. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the opening of buds and the rebirth of spring, we remember them. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. We take a moment now for the silent recitation of the Yizkor prayer. On page 492, we rise for the memorial prayer.
לנשמות יקירנו שהלכו לעולמם. בעל הרחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור החיים את נשמתם. אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום על משכבם. ונאמר אמן.
O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved ones who have entered eternity. Source of mercy, let them find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up in the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is their inheritance. May they rest in peace, and let us say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shemirav, ve'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chai echon of Yom Echon of Chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbam v'varach ve'alam u'lamei. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, Yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, Yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei D'Kudsha B'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbachata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlam maraba min Shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. We say together, Amen.
Amen.
Thank you all for your presence and for your prayers. We'll move right away into our concluding service. Once you find a seat, up closer to the front if you like, we'll begin our concluding service, the Ne'ilah service, my favorite service of the whole year.